There are many different ways to live. We haven't done everything right, and frankly it seems that some life forms have done a lot of things wrong, both for people and the planet. So today we're going to take a very curious look at some different cultures in the world and try not to be judgmental about it. Here are 20 uncontacted lost tribes that never evolved. Wow, maybe after this we could all brush up on evolution. And if you feel that same spark of intrigue and passion to unearth more hidden truths, feel free to subscribe to our channel. It's free and will take you on endless, fascinating adventures that will transform your perception of the world. Let's get started. Number 20. North Sentinel Island Tribe. Everyone who saw them vanished. Meet the forgotten tribe that has yet to discover fire. And again, this is insulting and probably not true. The Sentinelese are one of the most isolated people on the planet. They actively reject any contact with the outside world and may have inhabited their island as a people for 55,000 years. Now, complete isolation on a tiny island in the Indian Ocean means that the Sentinelese are violently protective of their territory and have murdered anyone who poked their nose into their business. It sounds harsh, but with the populations of neighboring islands wiped out by diseases imported from elsewhere, any germs or viruses they might pick up from an outsider would likely wipe them out. Obviously, it's hard to understand much about a tribe you can't get close to without getting an arrow in the chest. So all that is known has been observed by a few curious people on boats that carefully stayed farther away than arrows could reach, off the coast of the island. In 1880, a British expedition landed on the island and discovered the villages and houses abandoned, presumably because the tribe had seen the invading force and gone into hiding. The expeditionaries found an elderly couple and some children, and in the horrible wisdom of the colonial attitude, they kidnapped the people from the island for scientific reasons. The Sentinelese quickly became ill, and the elderly died. The children were returned to the island, but how many were infected with deadly diseases is obviously unknown. It is not surprising that outsiders are greeted with hostility by the Sentinelese. Several attempts at communication have been made throughout the 1970s and 1980s, with gifts being left on the beaches, but most were rejected and then buried by the tribe. More recently, it has finally been accepted that it is probably safer for the Sentinelese tribe if they are left in peace. Number 19. The AWA. The AWA are an indigenous group living deep in the Brazilian Amazon rainforest. They are believed to number around 450 people and are one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer societies on Earth. Their unique way of life and deep connection to the rainforest is something rare and rapidly disappearing. The AWA have managed to maintain their traditional way of life despite external threats, relying on the rich biodiversity of the Amazon for their livelihood. They gather fruits, nuts, and hunt small animals for their survival, and have a deep knowledge of the flora and fauna of the rainforest, with a genuine connection to the natural environment because it is vital to their survival. Despite their resilience, the AWA have faced many significant challenges. Deforestation, illegal logging, and land invasion have threatened not only their territory, but also their way of life. Efforts have been made by the Brazilian government and international organizations to protect their lands and ensure their survival, but many of them still live in isolation, facing constant threat from outsiders. There is really nothing to fear from the tribe, but to be honest, they have everything to fear from the outside world. Number 18. The Mashco Piro. The Mashco Piro are an indigenous tribe from the more remote areas of the Amazon River Basin in Peru. This nomadic people are hunter-gatherers who have avoided contact with non-native people. It is not surprising that they have chosen to live this way, given that tribal people who have been infiltrated by outsiders elsewhere have generally brought disease, alcoholism, and violence to the indigenous populations of South America. The Mashco Piro have a reputation for being very secretive and tend to avoid being seen, but they have occasionally been photographed, or at least sighted by curious people looking to pry into the affairs of tribal people. This does not always end well. There were reports in 2012 that after photographs of the people were captured, a member of the exploration team was found dead with an arrow through his heart, supposedly shot by the tribe itself. Number 17. The Yanomami. The Yanomami live in the remote rainforest region of southern Venezuela in the Orinoco River Basin and in the northernmost area of the Amazon River Basin in northern Brazil. These people live in small villages that they move to when they need to inhabit a new area for agricultural purposes, and they practice a type of shifting cultivation known as slash-and-burn agriculture. It is exactly as it sounds. They burn areas of the rainforest to clear space to plant crops. This makes more sense than you might think, as the ash provides some fertilization for the soil, and weeds are more or less completely removed from the area. This is a technique practiced by many indigenous peoples, and after the land has been used for farming, it is left fallow and will revert to a secondary area of rainforest. Although it sounds brutal, the practice has been going on for thousands of years and does not impact the environment like the use of modern pesticides and the like in industrial agriculture. In addition to subsistence farming, the Yanomami also hunt deer, monkeys, armadillos, birds, and other things. What may give the tribe its reputation for being scary is an ongoing hostility between the people and other local villages. They are constantly at war with each other, and this can be quite violent. But if you are not a hostile neighboring village, you probably don't have to worry too much about the Yanomami. Number 16. The KW tribe of Papua. Despite being fairly isolated and living in harmony with nature in their rainforest home, the Karai have made headlines around the world with tabloids looking for sensational stories about wild places and strange rituals. The newspaper's dreams came true when they were able to shine a spotlight on the Kai's unusual culture, listing cannibalism and witchcraft among their favorite pastimes. But as is always the case with tabloid headlines, you have to look a little deeper to understand the real meaning of the story. In a remote area of the Indonesian rainforest, the Karai build their remarkable homes between 8 and 15 meters above the ground, sometimes in trees or on high stilts. The reason is said to be that evil spirits only linger on the ground, so building high up will keep the family safe. It also offers great protection from animals and many insects, as well as invading humans. They are a religious people, and their beliefs include reincarnation, as well as respect for their ancestors, and the belief that some of their members even have magical abilities and can influence things like luck and detect black magic. This element of their culture is probably where accusations of cannibalism and witchcraft come from, and in the past, there may have been violent endings to disagreements within the tribe. However, today, most problems are solved fairly well by simply giving each other gifts. Number 15. The Ao Rio tribe. The Ao Rio live in an area known as the Gran Chaco, which spans both Paraguay and Bolivia. These people were traditionally nomadic hunter-gatherers, but this was all but eliminated from their lives by missionaries in the 20th century. So now the remaining members of the tribe are more or less sedentary and live in villages, although some remain uncontacted. They are now at risk due to large-scale deforestation and loss of territory in the area. Today, there are laws in place to protect indigenous people from contact with outsiders, and these are intended to help prevent the transmission of diseases to the tribes, as they do not have the resistance that the outside world has. Many diseases have proven devastating to these kinds of communities if they become infected. This is probably one of the scariest things, that they are at such risk from clumsy people meddling in their affairs. Of course, there are plenty of stories about the practices of remote tribes, but much of this is based on hearsay and gossip. So if you want that sort of thing, you can look it up. Otherwise, we're just spreading falsehoods for the sake of sensationalism. And frankly, it's a bit ignorant. Number 14. The Sioux tribe. The Siri or Surma of Ethiopia have a unique style of wrestling known as stick wrestling. The two wrestlers, with bodies decorated with chalk mixed with water, are armed with a 6-foot wooden stick. It is quite heavy, weighing a couple of pounds. The long stick is held at the bottom, and the object of the sport is to hit your opponent with your huge stick as many times as possible so that he falls. When your opponent falls, he is eliminated. The prize at the end of the tournament is unusual. The winner is carried on a platform to a group of girls and can then choose which one he will marry. So young men are selected for their stick fighting skills and young women for the size of their lip plates. The lower lip is pierced and then slowly stretched over the course of a year, using larger and larger discs as they progress. Ouch! The family of a woman with a large lip plate can ask a price of up to 50 head of cattle for her to marry. I like big plates, and I cannot lie. Number 13. Kawahiva. The Kawahiva are one of the last uncontacted indigenous tribes in the Amazon rainforest. They primarily inhabit the remote regions of Brazil, and very little is known about their exact numbers because they have chosen, quite wisely, to remain isolated from the outside world, making them one of the most unknown and perhaps vulnerable indigenous communities in the world. The Kawahiva live in small family groups, engaging in hunter-gatherer lifestyles and rely on the resources of the forest for their entire way of life. They are known to have an intricate knowledge of the Amazon rainforest and its diverse ecosystems, which they use to survive in their isolated environment. Their decision to remain isolated is likely a response to historical encounters with outsiders, which have often led to violence, disease, and exploitation. As a result, they have actively avoided contact with the wider society, and you can hardly blame them. If every time you saw an outsider they gave you a disease, attacked you, or stole your land, and then forced you to act, dress, and pray like them, wouldn't you stay very far away? Efforts have been made to protect the territory of the Kawahiva and other uncontacted tribes in Brazil, all to ensure their survival while preserving their cultural heritage. Government organizations and agencies now seem to understand the value of allowing indigenous peoples to have their rights, and have begun working to demarcate and safeguard their lands against illegal logging, mining, and other threats that may encroach on their territory. Number 12. The Karubo, one of Brazil's indigenous people groups, the Dlela as they call themselves, or Karubo as they're known to outsiders, are some of the most isolated people in the world. This tribe is very small, numbering only about 150 people. And when you think of Amazonian tribes, you'd imagine those old movie depictions and the kinds of adventure stories in retro comics and books, and the poison darts and the great hunting skills in the jungle. Well, those aren't that far from the truth when it comes to this tribe. They're also called by another word in Portuguese that means mace. Not the party kind, but the gun-wielding kind. So that probably has something to do with their reputation for violence, although it seems just as likely that the violence is inflicted on the people of the tribe by outsiders rather than the other way around. It's true that they hunt with poison darts and fight with maces, so I guess you just need to imagine an Indiana Jones-style scenario and then move on. Number 11. The Yafo tribe. Back in Papua New Guinea. This time we are with the Yafo people, who live in the country's East Sepik province, in the highlands. These people were first encountered and described in 1988 by a man named Benedict Allen, a British explorer, writer, and broadcaster. They are one of the few remaining uncontacted tribes in the world, meaning they have had little to no contact with the outside world, including modern society. Apart from this Benedict Allen guy, I assume. Very little is known about these people due to their isolation. They live in small communities in the forest and rely on hunting, gathering, and farming for their survival. Their lifestyle is probably similar to that of other indigenous tribes in the region, with traditional practices and customs passed down through the generations. Due to their isolation, they are often referred to as uncontacted or unreached, and efforts to contact them are generally discouraged in order to protect their way of life and prevent the spread of diseases to which they may have no immunity. Number 10. The Mercy tribe. When a girl in the Mercy or Surma tribes in Africa turns 15 or 16, the tradition is that she will begin the process of wearing a lip plate. This starts when her mother, or sometimes another woman, cuts her lower lip and inserts a wooden plug. That plug stays in place until the wound heals, which can take up to 3 months. Then, a disc can be chosen and added to the hole. The size of the disc is really a personal decision, and the young girl will choose for herself how far she wants to go with all of this. The disc starts out small, and then is gradually increased until she reaches the desired size. Some of the girls may continue to add larger discs until they reach about 12 centimeters in diameter, but that is not necessarily what is required. It is a personal choice, and many will stop at a much smaller size. These lip plates actually have several important meanings for these women. They are a symbol of beauty, a commitment to the woman's husband, and they traditionally use it when serving food to her. It is a powerful indicator of her identity and belonging to the tribe. Number 9. The Lacandones. The Lacandon are a Mayan tribe living in the jungles of Chiapas, Mexico. They are one of the most isolated native peoples there, and in 1943, the population of this tribe was so low that they almost became extinct. However, their numbers have increased somewhat since then. There are now thought to be around 650 people who speak their language. During colonial times, these people largely managed to escape Spanish control by living in extremely remote regions of the jungle. And it is for this reason that their customs are still intact and are similar to those of the pre-Columbian Mesoamericans from whom they descend. Number 8. Zoe or Paturu or Bu. This is a tribe with several different names that is native to the state of Pará on some river in Brazil. The name Zoe is a word meaning we and is used to differentiate the tribe from people who are enemies or non-indigenous. They are also known by the name Paturu because of the type of wood they use to make a lip piercing, which is common in the tribe. This is a type of plug piercing that goes through the lower lip, and the people have been the subject of the work of Brazilian photographer Sebastião Salgado, who has documented their lives and practices. Number 7. The Asaro Mudmen. These scary-looking masks are not something you want to encounter in the dark. The Asaro Mudmen of Papua New Guinea are an ancient people. They are also known as the Hosa, meaning ghosts, and they have no written history, but many stories and oral traditions have been passed down through the generations. One of the stories tells of a wedding and the tribe wearing their finest outfits for the ceremony. However, one man had no clothes, so, the story goes, he took a string bag, cut out holes for his eyes, dipped the bag and his body in mud, and then arrived at the wedding dressed in this wild-looking outfit, where the others saw him and ran away in terror, thinking he was a ghost. Now I can see why they freaked out. Masks can be super creepy, and the story goes that the incident gave the people of the tribe the idea to make scary masks and use mud as body paint to make themselves even more intimidating, actually terrifying their enemies. The costume isn't meant to start a fight, but to scare away the enemy. So even though you might be terrified of meeting an Asaro Mudman, you're actually supposed to run away. Number 6. The Hadza. The Hadza live in the Lake Eyasi region of northern Tanzania in East Africa. They are one of the last hunter-gatherer societies in the world and have some very interesting traditions. They have been nomadic by tradition and moved with the seasons in search of food sources, primarily wild game, honey, berries, and tubers. Their hunting techniques, which often involve the use of a bow and poison-tipped arrows, are super precise and extremely effective. Their language is one of the few remaining click languages in the world. Their society is based on an extraordinarily egalitarian structure, and they have no centralized leadership or hierarchical systems. They make all their decisions by consensus and cooperation within small family groups. This equality is reflected in their shared access to resources and collective decision-making. They actually sound pretty amazing. Number 4. The Piripkura. This is one of the last remaining uncontacted indigenous tribes in the Amazon. They live in the Piripkura Indigenous Territory, which is located in Mato Grosso, Brazil. The village used to have over 100 people, but now it is believed that there are only 3 surviving individuals left. This is mainly due to a horrific massacre at the hands of illegal loggers during the 1980s, when the forest's resources were stolen and exploited. At least 20 people are known to have died this way, but the reason behind the decline of the rest of the population is not entirely clear. One of the survivors has told numerous stories about the massacre and the destruction that was brought to the village. The survivors now live in isolation in the forest and have very little contact with the outside world. In 2008, there was an order restricting access and use of the land in that territory, but ranchers and loggers have invaded the area many times. There have been accusations that the tribe have been used as pawns by environmentalists, but they have been mistreated and killed by the deforestation and its perpetrators. Although there have been many legal moves to demarcate the area and ban encroachment, there is a constant threat that these orders will not be renewed, and the growth of ranches in the region means that a large part of the forest is being destroyed. There is barely room left for the few people who remain. Number 3. The Caribbeans. The Kalinago, sometimes called Caribs, are an indigenous group native to the islands of the Eastern Caribbean, including Dominica, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. They have a rich and unique history, culture, and heritage that has endured for many centuries. Historically, these incredible people were known for their fierce resistance to European colonization, particularly by the Spanish, French, and British. Their warrior spirit earned them a reputation as formidable opponents, and their resistance played a significant role in shaping the colonial history of the Caribbean. They have a deep connection to the natural environment and are skilled fishermen, boat builders, and farmers. They build beautiful canoes carved from tree trunks, which they use for fishing and transport between islands. Their culture is rich in oral tradition, storytelling, dance, and music, and traditional art includes weaving, pottery, and basketry. Today, they continue to assert their cultural identity and rights, and are officially recognized as an indigenous group within the Caribbean. Number 2. The Matses. The Matses, or Mayaruna, are an indigenous group from the Amazon region of Peru and Brazil. There are around 3,200 people who still speak the traditional language. Over the last 3 decades, this tribe has gradually settled down, rather than leading the nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle they had always been accustomed to. They mainly live in permanent forest settlements now, but still rely heavily on hunting and gathering for all of their food. The people are extremely knowledgeable about the plants and animals that live in the jungle around them and bring very little into their community from outside because the jungle provides much of what they really need. They live carefully among the natural world, and their beliefs include animal spirits, and they have a deep respect for the creatures of the forest. The tribe did not have much contact with the outside world until around 1969, when missionaries came into their communities. They had had conflicts with the Peruvian government before that, and had been under violent attack. Relations between the tribe and government forces are now largely peaceful. In 1998, an indigenous reserve was established for the tribe, which gave them title to approximately 457,000 hectares of the rainforest. However, living conditions have become quite difficult, and the future survival of this indigenous tribe is now at risk. Number 1. The Asmat tribe. The Asmat are an indigenous group that is native to the southwestern region of Papua in Indonesia, particularly concentrated in and around the Asmat region. In the outside world, these people are known for their intricate skill in wood carving, which is internationally recognized and admired. But interestingly, their unique culture goes far beyond their artistic talent and what the rest of the world can take from them. These people traditionally live a subsistence lifestyle and rely on hunting, fishing, and horticulture for their food. Their society is organized into clans, with each clan inhabiting a longhouse where many different families live together. Their spiritual beliefs are deeply rooted in animism and ancestor worship, and they create elaborate ancestor poles to honor and communicate with their deceased relatives. Well, they haven't performed this ceremony in the past 20 years, as it was only performed once before. Like so many other stories you will see, the Asmat people have been invaded by the outside world, as is standard, with Christian missionaries breaking into the people's way of life and bringing disease and exploitation, as well as imposing their beliefs on people who never asked for such interference. The destructive nature of these visitors to unique cultures should not be underestimated. Long-lasting and serious damage has been done to people around the world as invaders exploit their lands and destroy their cultures and traditions. The efforts being made to preserve the remaining Asmat way of life are probably too little, too late. Well, that's all for this fascinating look at some traditional and indigenous ways of life. Which of these tribes has captured your imagination? Go on, tell me about it in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe for more amazing stories like this one. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.